Sunshine!
Yo, what's up YouTube? Charizma here, and today I'm going to keep the intro for this one short and sweet because I have a feeling this is going to be my second longest video, probably behind the Naruto one. So anyways, we turn our attention to Ishgar in the land of Fiore, to the city of Magnolia. It's fairy tale, okay? No need for the grand introduction. You guys saw the title already. We all know why we're here. To rank shit. Now, I'm so sorry to the guy that left the very elaborate comment under my original Boruto ranking video that suggested me to do Fairy Tail next because I had to delete the original video for copyright reasons, and I re-uploaded it before I remembered to screenshot it or at least like unlist the video so that I can like go back and reference the comment. So I can't credit you. I've forgotten your name. I apologize. But if you're out there watching, I owe you a drink if you're old enough. But yeah, shout out to this guy as well because he also commented. Anyways, we're ranking all the Fairy Tail OPs from worst to best. And if you include the 3 openings from the OVAs and the one from the first Fairy Tail film, The Phoenix Priestess, then we end up with a perfect 30. And seeing as how I have 30 openings to get to and analyze, I want to just dive right in, but first I want to attempt to, I guess, clear the air surrounding Fairy Tail. The running joke nowadays is that Fairy Tail is trash, and while I can see why certain people say that, I mean, it is one of the most shonen-tastic series I've ever seen. I think it's far from trash and actually rather enjoyable. It has one of the best female casts in shonen in my opinion. The story is dense, although to its detriment at times, and above all else, if you love shipping and fan service and stuff like that, then this series is for you. Revisiting the series in its entirety has reminded me that Fairy Tail really isn't all that bad, depending on what you like shonen for, of course. But now with that out of the way, of course the criteria remains the same. Here it is again for all the noobs: music, artistic direction, plot relevance, and the almighty nostalgia factor. Of course, I'm still going to give my full analysis on each entry, but we do have 30 of them to get through, so some of them I might have to breeze through. But let's get started with every Fairy Tail opening ranked from worst to best. Number 30. Okay, so spoiler alert for the next few spots because most of these bottom entries are going to be like a mini battle of sorts between all the filler and OVA openings for which is the best of the worst because, I mean, let's not kid ourselves here. They pale in comparison to the rest of the bunch, and I'm not just saying that because they aren't based on the manga. I'm saying it because most of them are just super bland, you know? Especially this one here. This OP is so goddamn boring, man. The song is cool, it is what it is, but that isn't the problem here. The visuals are just basic, you know? The fight scene at the end is the cliche, all the main cast team up to defeat the monster of the week type thing, and the majority of the rest of the OP is taken up by a basic Natsu and Grey backstory / power-up scene, and of their silhouettes running past a bunch of moments from series past that are panning way too fast to even appreciate, and the scene that lasts 5 seconds too long in my opinion. Nothing really redeemable at all for me in this OP, and is honestly just a 90-second roadblock keeping me from all that borderline ecchi greatness that these OVAs were really here for, because they weren't here for the OPs, let me tell you. Number 29. See, now this right away is a step up from the blowaway opening. It has this badass scene of Fairy Tail's strongest team marching through a scorching battlefield, nameplate scenes of the main cast, which I love personally, more emotionally striking scenes for the backstories of Urza, Lucy, and Grey, and a beautiful scene of Natsu channeling the spirit of Ignil, and heavier, flashier action all around. Plus, I prefer the song too. It's still second from bottom, so I can't give it too much credit, but it does also represent the Fairy Hills episode, which I think is the best all-around Fairy Tail OVA besides the first one from the 2016 group, for more, let's just say, ludicrous reasons. So that only helps edge it up a bit more. But yeah, still nothing really to gush over here or anything. I just appreciate that there's a lot more going on in this OP than in my previous entry. Oh, but Urza at the very end, man, look at how snackish she looks, bruh. More of this, please. Number 28. I decided to grant this the honor of being the best OVA opening simply because it's the most fun out of them all, you know? While Eternal Fellows tried its best to replicate everything great about the top tier fairy tale OPs, and Blow Away was just nothing, Give Me 5 would actually capture the carefree and laid-back vibe of all the OVAs perfectly. It's not taking itself more seriously than it needs to, and you immediately pick up on that seeing Makarov lip-sync to Chihiro Yonekura. Long story short, a few interesting artistic choices were made for this OP in a good way. The happy-go-lucky hands up in the air scenes don't really do anything for me, but again, it's fun. What really grabs my attention though is how the studio chose to combine different environments or different types of weather conditions in a single environment to form one background. It's certainly unique. And speaking of backgrounds and weather conditions, this scene of Kana drinking with Magnolia and the weather changing in the background is immaculate. During the sunset, the rain, or the snow, and Makarov lurking in the far back is another nice touch as well. I also enjoy the high five scene at the end because, I mean, if nothing else, it fits with the song, but also because teamwork and friendship and all that bull. Once again, the song in the OP is pretty fun, and seeing Urza shake her fairy tits is even more fun. I just can't wait until December when I can rewatch the Fairy Tale Christmas episode and just jam out to this OP in my itchy and poorly designed holiday sweater. Number 27. I have no recollection of this OP at all, and yeah, sure, that's probably my fault because personally Fairy Tale filler bores me to tears, but is this OP really all that impressive? It has a few neat little moments like Lucy being comforted by Michelle, the scoundrel, Natsu versus Midnight, Lahar and Mess or Doranbo, I don't even know anymore, walking in what kinda looks like heaven, and Lucy doing her best shooting star cosplay falling from the sky because, you know, this is the key to the Starry Sky arc. Do you get it? But can anyone really say that they care about this OP? Who are these people? This was the filler arc after the 7-year time skip post Tenrou Island, so I'll give it a pass in the sense that it was a downtime for the series, but the filler arc was just a Lucy-based redo of Nirvana, and was honestly just a way to get the Irration Seis to be Fairy Tail's punching bags again. I'm good. It's not like the original, but the song is still pretty cool. Number 26. And speaking of the original, this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is my least favorite manga canon based opening from the series. Sorry. It was my initial reaction when I first got to this point in the series, and my opinion hasn't really changed, to be honest. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely better than any of the OVA openings from a visual and music standpoint, and don't let me get in the way of anyone that may have nostalgia for this point in the series. The reveal of another Dragon Slayer, Cobra, and a member of the 10 Wizard Saints, Jura, the Irration Seis in all their glory before they were brought back 1,000,001 times, and of course how Wendy and Carla ended up joining the Fairy Tail Guild. But in the grand scheme of the series, and compared to everything after this arc is pretty forgettable and is the usual Fairy Tail formula of the main cast splitting up to fight, plot armoring their way to victory, and separately but together thwarting the enemy's diabolical plan. The OP does have some pretty satisfying scenes though, like of Wendy's past with Jalal or missed again, I don't even know anymore. Seeing Midnight at night, finally awake after all this time, and of course I can appreciate how cool Lamia Scale looks and Blue Pegasus choreography for their dance. Natsu's battle with Brain leaves a lot to be desired though, and the overall OP is still pretty middle of the road for me. I wasn't watching the series during this arc back then, so it has little to no nostalgic influence over me. That still doesn't mean though that there aren't many enjoyable things about this OP, and the song isn't that bad. But I certainly found myself skipping or at least wanting to skip this OP a lot during my binge. which is never a good sign, really. Number 25. For a movie OP, this is kind of underwhelming, I'm not gonna lie. Here I was thinking this was going to be cheating compared to the other OPs because, you know, it's a film, it'll have a big budget and top tier animation, which it did in all fairness. The movie isn't actually that bad. 7 out of 10, highly recommend it. But there's just not really much going on in this OP. I get it, you know? It's for a movie, so you don't want to be too flashy about it and overshadow shit. But maybe we could have gotten a little bit more than just watching the Phoenix Stone falling the entire time with still images of the main cast in the background along with sketch versions of them similar to the eye catchers from the Tartaros arc. Towards the end, we finally get some action and more animation, but once you realize that it's just scenes cut from the movie, it becomes less impressive upon rewatching it. I guess the reason why I still place this as high as I did, or as low as I did because it's still only number 25, is because I enjoy the song so much. There's just something so inherently nostalgic about it. It sounds like something I would have grown up watching in the early 2000s when this type of pop punk sound was in every English dubbed movie soundtrack, you know? This opening is more of a literal opening credits than an OP. I mean, it's alright. I guess I just expected a little bit more. Number 24. There's don't really have much to say about this OP, really. I mean, at least it has more going on in it than in the film's OP. And Hajimari no Sora sounds better than Fiesta to me, I guess, if we're comparing the band to itself. But overall, this OP is just the middest of mid OPs. Nothing outright boring or ugly, but nothing incredibly unique about it either. It just screams a filler, you know? And you don't have to even have watched a single episode of Fairy Tail to get that vibe. Uninspired, I guess, is the word of the day for this entry, and it's especially applicable to these opening scenes of the Fairy Tail members standing proudly in the wind. Oh, it's just so anime, and I guess to the concept of this arc as a whole. I don't want to get into it, I would lose viewers. It does still have some pretty enjoyable scenes though, which I kind of find myself saying this a lot at this point. Scenes like of Wendy being harassed by the butt jiggle gang, FBI, open up! Lucy being chased down by Earthland Coco, and this zoom out shot of the team being shown inside the infinity clock, but that's just not enough to save it, sorry. I am struggling to praise this OP anymore at this point, so I'm just going to end it here before I run out of nice things to say about it. Number 23. First things first, how can you not love the mafia-style scenes of the male and female Fairy Tail members in the very beginning? Much like Suki no Ukisa from Naruto Shippuden and Tonight 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 from Bleach, I love OPs that choose a distinct theme and just go all in with it. Favorite poses here include Panther Lily looking like the bouncer that you better hope your name is on the VIP list or your ass is getting tossed. Natsu and Happy looking like top flight NCIS detectives. Urza assuming the role of seductive mistress just waiting for her opportunity to set you up to get robbed or just rob you herself. And of course Wendy looking like the low-key kingpin calling all the shots. It's fantastic. Not only that, but I can also appreciate how they managed to squeeze in as many references to the different filler episodes as they could in this OP, from Lucy and the Celestial Spirits all the way to Gray dealing with Juvia and remembering his master Or. The action scene of some of the guild members also holds up pretty well animation-wise, especially Panther Lily and Natsu, of course. This was the filler section between the Grand Magic Games and Tartaros, and all in all, it's a pretty solid OP, but for whatever reason, I just prefer the other OP for this filler section of the series. Maybe it's just me. Number 22. Here we have the king of the filler OPs, ladies and gentlemen, Mysterious Magic. I skipped right over this shit once the whole eclipse situation was over and dealt with, so the nostalgia is still very low in regards to this OP, but I'm just so glad I revisited this arc, even if it was just for a second while working on this video, which is how a great filler OP should make you feel, in all honesty. There's something just so cinematic to this OP. It's more of a film OP than 200 Miles was if we're comparing it musically, in my opinion. But really, I just love this OP for the art. The sections of the OP reserved for images of the main cast, some with minor animation, and with white outline battle scenes of them in the background are just very satisfying pieces of animation. The still shots are drawn with such great detail and showcase all the most charming and/or badass sides of their characters, especially Urza. Man, everything about her is just dominating. I digress. And this has always been my favorite Wendy outfit, so that only reinforces my point. You can take it or leave it as a filler arc, as it really has no bearing on anything else in the series, but a story about the celestial spirits rebelling against the wizards can be pretty enjoyable for what it is, so yeah. To put it simply, this OP is nice, but it still can't compare to even my least favorite of canon OPs, and even just nostalgia alone. So best of the worst, yeah, but it's still fairly enjoyable. Number 21. Finally, we've made it to the actual series. We've sifted through the pile of OVA and filler openings that I had to address but honestly never really gave a crap about, and now we can talk about something that I actually know and can connect with. The fifth OP to the series was never one of my favorites per se, but it does contain a huge amount of concentrated nostalgia for the early fairy tale adventures that I'll always have a soft spot for, even if it can be a bit slow and samey at times. This first section of Wendy alone hits me in the feels so much because I always loved the way she and Carla were brought into Fairy Tail, and her backstory with Jalal and the Cage Shelter Guild. And speaking of guilds, I also really appreciate seeing all the different teams involved in the Wizard Alliance, all with their guild crests too. It's just a fairly simple thing to do to effectively set the stage for a new arc and introduce a bunch of new characters. The scenes of Urza, Jalal, and Nirvana was pretty enticing upon the first couple of viewings of this OP, just because it led to a lot of questions, you know? And the Arachion Sace probably looks their most badass here compared to their other showings so far. The action still isn't the most exciting that it can get, but it's perfectly serviceable for a setup opening such as this one, before the arc really kicks into second gear, you know? As you've probably already figured out though, the biggest reason for Magic of Smiles' placement here is just because of how nostalgic it is. It would have been placed higher, but the plot, music, and art is all just slightly above average, and even the nostalgia factor gets trumped by a bunch of other OPs further down the line that we'll address shortly. But ain't Wendy just adorable? FBI, open up! Number 20. It's far too poppy for Fairy Tail. That was my immediate reaction when first watching this OP, but after seeing Carla dance in her human form a couple of times, I was won over, I'm not gonna lie. This was pretty much a reboot for the series because of the guild's disbandment and the anime's 2-year-long hiatus leading up to this new and final season. This OP is filled with tons of nostalgia for me, despite being one of the more recent ones. Reverse nostalgia, if you will, because it's not the same start of a new world nostalgic feeling that I get from any of the earlier OPs. It's more like this is Fairy Tail's last hurrah because yeah, Makarov is over Fairy Tail, A1 Pictures and TV Tokyo are over Fairy Tail, but we still got a war to get out of the way, so let's just appreciate that we even got this. The slow look up to the sky scene at the beginning is again so anime it hurts, but does make the heart grow fond of back when everything was normal in Fairy Tail, you know? The feels don't stop either when we see Lucy and Natsu walking with ghost-like images of the different Fairy Tail members separated by gender placed behind them, especially because those two, but more so Natsu, were the whole reason behind Fairy Tail's reunion in the first place. Natsu doesn't care if you're happily married and retired from fighting. Come back to Fairy Tail and let's have a bunch of near-death experiences together. Yeah, that sounds like fun. And seeing Makarov with a full beard for the first time was certainly attention-grabbing, to say the least. The action in this OP was also pretty dope, but if we're being honest, this pales in comparison to the rest of the OPs from the final season, at least action-wise. It's another one of those setup OPs that isn't the most exciting, and the song is a bit too lighthearted, but it is from the final season, so of course the animation is gorgeous. It's a mixed bag, I guess. Number 19. Now we're approaching the real ranking. From here on out, there's going to be a lot less discussion about what I dislike and more about how much I like certain things compared to other things, OPs, arcs, etc. But the Edelus arc, man. Ever since Fairy Tail in the Guild Hall got turned into a giant lacrima in the middle of Edelus, it seemed like with each subsequent arc, the series just grew better and better. Honestly, I'm just glad that my guy Happy actually got an arc. Wendy just had her arc, Urza got her arc already, Graze was like one of the first arcs, and the entire story revolves around Lucy and Natsu. So I'm just glad that we got to learn more about where Happy came from and about the Xyz in general. I expected them to just be nothing more than typical shonen pets, used for comedic relief and whatnot. But back to the OP, and for the early part of the series, many of the scenes in this OP were storyboarded incredibly well. Ooh, look at the pretty lights. Like Happy and Carla flying Natsu and Wendy up into the portal to Edelus, Kid Natsu, Lizana, and Gildarts in a field, and especially Mystigan confronting Wendy here. And the song is remarkably catchy as well. Like, it's one of those songs that you cannot listen to for about 10 years, play it back and still remember the melody perfectly. And this song was stuck in my head for like a week during the making of this video, so yeah. They did, however, edit the song a little awkwardly towards the end. Like, this is the studio I'm talking about, because it kind of sounds like the song was cut off prematurely or something. This fade out at the end just doesn't do it for me. It made it into my top 20 just barely, because it gets overshadowed by a lot more plot heavy and spectacular OPs, but needless to say, this is the point in the video where the nitpicking truly begins. Number 18. I think we've reached our first goosebump inducer, guys and gals, but mostly guys. God, this song is just so lit, bro. Taking it all the way back to only the second opening of the series now. Remember how I said that the last 4 openings of Fairy Tail were absolutely wonderful? Well, the same goes for the first 4 openings of Fairy Tail, but just under a slightly different context. But unfortunately, Sense of Wonder is still my least favorite of the 4 OG OPs, which at this point I'm realizing that I have way too many mini rankings going on within this overall rankception. But still though, by no means am I calling this a bad OP, it's just competition is stiff, man. Once again, another inherently nostalgic OP, which sounds even more nostalgic with the song by Idling in the background that honestly sounds perfect for any late 90s, early 2000s shonen anime. The song sounds like it was made for a Saturday morning cartoon block is what I'm trying to say. But this is why I had to give the OVA OPs such a rough time, man. They just don't do regular showcase openings as good as the early series does, still introducing the cast, you know? Here we see Gajio for the first time in a fairly decent battle scene against Natsu. We see pretty satisfying scenes of the hands of the main cast preparing to attack, with scenes of them attacking right behind them. Then my favorite section of all, using quick fade to black flashes of teases to the different backstories of the main cast, all is build up for an upwards panning shot of Happy flying in front of all the rest of the cast, really exemplifying my point that the first opening should always draw in as many casual fans as possible, whereas the second OP should dive right in on deepening the cast and expanding the lore of the series as a whole. I won't touch too much on the plot around this time because I've already spoken enough on this OP, but it definitely helps to trigger the nostalgia of what it was like to be a fresh Fairy Tail fan, to say the least. Number 17. when you hear that fairy tale come in, fairy tale, and the whole screen goes red and the letters for the title card come in, oh bruh, it makes you wake the fuck up, man. Now, this is during the Tartaros arc when the studio was like, let's just throw a gray filter on everything to make it seem grittier, you know? So if you notice a lack of saturation here, then that's why, but that doesn't stop this OP from being flashy in the slightest. One thing's for sure is that I love the way the fire in this OP is animated. The fire, gray as ice, any aura or magic spell of any kind in this opening looks fantastic. Actually, scratch that. All the action in this OP looks fantastic, especially this quick scene of Wendy using the Dragon Force for the first time. I absolutely love this point in the Tartaros arc, and I'm sorry that I'm jumping around so much already, but there's just so much to talk about with this OP. And for all the ones after this, to be honest, we're approaching the top 15, you know? But no, one of the best episodes in the entire series happens during this time when Allegria is set off, and Lucy is literally the only one left to defend Fairy Tail. As if Lucy wasn't likable enough already, they let her save the entire plot. It wasn't a full-blown war arc, that would come on a little bit later, but there was certainly a huge battle kicking off all over the city of Magnolia against a bunch of demons from the Book of Zera, and this OP captures the high stakes and absolute madness of the Tartaros arc perfectly, and even touching on the little tidbits of this part of the arc as well, like of Mira Jane, Lizana, and Elfman's upbringing, which is a true tearjerker. But besides that, there are plenty of well storyboarded scenes that you could appreciate regardless, including Sayla transforming into her Aetherius form against Mira Jane and Lizana. This is one of those OPs that you could watch and it immediately brings back memories of Face. But I guess this isn't the OP that's the most synonymous with this arc, so number 17 sounds fair enough to me. Yeah. Number 16. Now, some may be shocked at me placing this above the wild ride that was the Never End Tale OP, but honestly, it's just because the song in this one is one of the catchiest, if not the catchiest, of the entire series. During my initial binge watch of Fairy Tail, this OP was one of the few that actually paid rent in my head. Every once in a while, I would just break out into Rock City Boy chant, completely against my will, because the song, it just left that deep of an impression on me. I've already touched on how much I appreciate the Daedalus arc, and this OP is chock full of all my favorite aspects of it. Urza Scarlet versus Urza Nightwalker, the three Dragon Slayers teaming up for the first time, fan service to the max, Carla being ashamed of her mom and of her origin, and of course the fun as hell mini montage towards the end of the OP during the rapping portion of the song. The Rock City Boy is simply a very enjoyable, not poppy, but upbeat stage setter for the second half of the Daedalus arc and the battle against Faust. It was great to finally get some clarity on the Jalal and Mystigan situation, even though the whole Earthland Daedalus connection kinda confused me for a while, and the return of Lizana was great too, even though the whole relationship between her and Natsu was seemingly just tossed to the side after this. The action in this OP is still pretty average, but everything is colored so beautifully, like just look at it. More than anything though, this OP is number 16 off the strength of the music alone. It's just such an earworm, man. Number 15. Welcome to the Evergreen 15, everyone. And no, I'm not saying that as some homage to the Thunder Legion's resident waifu. I say this because from here on out, this is all timeless material, you know what I'm saying? Everyone knows I love a war arc and a tournament arc. The war we'll address later. So obviously I have some favoritism for all of the OPs during the Grand Magic Games, as this is when I was the most invested. Natsu and Gagio versus Sting and Rogue? I mean, do I even have to elaborate? Fairy Tail Promised Day is a song that makes me feel like I'm playing one of those Japanese arcade dancing games, you know, with the most elite footwork in all of the land. It's certainly energetic and is only complemented by the Grand Magic Games around this time reaching its climax. Once again, this is one of those OPs that managed to squeeze so much plot into just 90 seconds of animation. This is also when Crime Sorcier started getting all the coon scene. coon scenes. This is also when Crime Sorcier started getting all the cool scenes and all the OPs. I love Old Tier so much. Old Tier or Urza? Not now, Charisma. I absolutely love this eerie scene of Kagura and Miliano with the moon shining brightly in the background as well, like they're like werewolves or something, and of the scene of Urza raising her sword in triumph after running through, 100 monsters. It's light work. But the true glory of this OP comes out during the hook, man. When the beat drops and you see Natsu and Gagio charging at Sting and Rogue, you know that they mean business, bruh. And seeing everyone cheer them on, and especially all the Fairy Tail doing that point thingy for Spirit that Lox has created, with the absolutely angelic voice of Chihiro Yonekura bellowing in the background, it really gets you revved up for a tournament, And what a well-written and well-paced tournament it really turned out to be, in my opinion. If only the other OPs around this time weren't so absolutely legendary in my book, this could have potentially made it top 10, but 15 is good too. Number 14. Well, we're finally starting to touch on Tenrou Island, which is impressive as all of its OPs are exclusively in the top 15. Here we go with the mini rankings again, but if I had to compare the two arcade dancing game songs to each other, then I'd probably say that Toa no Kizuna surpasses the other one just by a little, only because I like the piano melody and the hook is a bit more head bop inducing, if you will. Still though, it is a tough call. I guess the OP also has more emotionally charged scenes in it as well, like of the debut of Zeref and all the foreshadowing that comes with that in regards to Natsu, seeing the old fairy tale compared to the modern day fairy tale, any scene of Kana dealing with her daddy issues, Natsu losing the guild arts, and the couple seeds that were planted in here for future ships, like of Gagil and Levy, and of Elfman and Evergreen. Forget Love and Hip Hop, it's Love and Fairy Tale now. This OP is much like the previous in the sense that the studio made room for every plate that was spinning during the events of the S-Class promotion trial on Tenrou Island. I'll always remember this OP for Kana's character arc, but more importantly, because of this scene at the very end of a bunch of fairy tale wizards zooming into frame, syncing up perfectly with the piano and the guitar of Toa no Kizuna, all in pretty dope poses by the way, especially Mira Jane. And they did Urza dirty, like she should really be up front with the all in all, this OP has grown over time to become one of my personal favorites, but again, honestly pales in comparison to the OP for the second half of the Tenrou arc, which is kind of becoming a running theme with these OPs now. Needless to say, this is the section of the list where we appreciate certain OPs but cannot award them too much credit as they were honestly just being used as setup OPs for climaxes of huge arcs in the future. Number 13. Another extremely catchy, high-energy OP that is often criminally underrated because it unfortunately gets lost in the shuffle amongst all the climax-based OPs and nostalgia trips. This is ultimately just a warm-up for all the madness that Tartaros brought, but what a warm-up it turned out to be, really. Let me just start by saying that this is probably the OP that includes the most shaky cam. I knew I would mention it at some point in this video, and I love it for that because it makes everything look just badass and what's that word that they use in cheesy action movie trailers? High octane, that's the one. Especially in the beginning with that mean guitar section and in the scene of Dorenbolt interrogating Cobra, who looks like he absolutely gives no Fs. And damn, Lucy, that thing is fat, girl. I also really appreciate the transition from Ore to Old Tier and of Natsu, Gray, and Lucy clutching each of their cherished souvenirs as some extreme foreshadowing for Lucy there. The best part of this OP is, of course, the action scene though. I like how threatening they made the treasure hunter seem in this OP, despite being a threat for like barely an entire episode. And Natsu vs Jackal is also pretty flashy, which is expected because it's fire versus explosions, In terms of plot around this time, again, it was the start of a new arc, so I understand if Sun Village was forgettable for some of you, but it was good for what it was. The story of the giants gave me real Elbath vibes, and I like Flare, but the battle against Jackal only reminded me of how scared Hiro Mashima was to kill off anybody. Sorry, Happy. It's not top 10 material this OP, but it's definitely towards the top of the pack for me. The first episode of this arc was titled Morning of a New Adventure, And you could have fooled me and told me that that was the name of the song as well, because that's the type of energy that Dream Color Graffiti gives me, which I like a lot. Or Yumeiro Graffiti, you know, whatever. Language. Number 12. This is another one of those OPs that can be often underrated and overlooked just because it's from way back in the beginning, you know, and it's actually one of the shortest tenured OPs. It was only used for 10 measly episodes. I feel like this OP deserved more room to breathe because, yeah, while there's not too much going on in this OP animation-wise, I very much feel like this is one of my favorite Fairy Tail openings just as a song, basically. I fucking love the hook for this song, man, especially when it's paired up with a super sick scene of Urza battling against Jalal in the sky, like this one here. This animation is super smooth, bruh. Slick AF. I do really enjoy the Fairy Tail title card being engulfed in flames though. It's honestly something I'm surprised they haven't done more because that's like, you know, Natsu's power and all that. I also really enjoy how Urza-centric this OP is as a setup for the Tower of Heaven arc, despite so many other different plot threads being stuffed in here as well, much like the section of episodes that this OP was used for. We see the OP debut of Juvia and Gajeel, hints to Loki's backstory and even Lucy's past as well, and I guess this will be a good time to bring up the nostalgic influence that the surrounding plot has on the ranking of this OP, you know? Natsu versus Gajeel, the first use of fairy law, Lucy sticking it to her dad, and for the first time, digging into Urza's tough and complicated past. They are all some of Fairy Tail's best moments from the early part of the series that this OP will always remind me of. It just missed out on the top 10 though, because again, this OP is pretty ordinary, I guess, compared to a lot of the others, but the strength of the song and nostalgia alone was enough to boost it up to the number 12 position. Number 11. This OP would have been pretty much perfect, but then they just had to go on ahead and ruin it right at the beginning, didn't they? I mean, come on. I get it that people complain about an opening being full of spoilers because the studio chooses to hype up certain parts of the forthcoming plot sometimes, and people consider that to be too much at times, but no. Showing a 7-year older version of Romeo and Natsu and the gang disappearing is actually too much. Just give away the time skip that's actually not a time skip. Why don't you? Other than that though, the opening is fantastic. Even from the very beginning, I'm sucked right into it. I love the intensity in Natsu's face right here, and as much as I dislike the inclusion of older Romeo, I do actually enjoy the contrast of the sky as it goes from a peaceful blue to a raging storm and to the catastrophic events on Tenrou Island. This is another OP that truly gave every important character and plot point around the time the proper room to breathe. I like how Ultir, Melody, Juvia, and Gray all have a section devoted to them, as their stories are pretty intertwined on Tenrou, and Ultir is looking like a snack as usual. Also, quick shout out to Urza looking like a snack as well, as always, but her scene with Azuma isn't all that interesting really. However, the battle between Gildarts and Blue Note Stinger is pretty good, and the scene of everyone challenging Hades is beautifully done. I love spin around battle sequences like this one, and it looks even more badass when it's one versus all like it is here for Hades. Overall, this opening really gives you the feeling that the pressure is on, which, yeah, Agnologia pulling up on you will do that to you. It's our first huge climax OP besides the Rock City Boy, and it literally just barely missed out on the top 10, but hey, if you don't like it, then I guess this is the time to tell you that the deeper we go into this list, the more subjective these picks are going to be, as if this wasn't all just my opinion already. Number 10. We made it to the promised land, guys. This is what you all really came for, right? Sure, I rank every opening because I like torturing myself once a month, but really all anyone cares about is what you consider your top 10 to be, you know? So for me, I'm starting off with RPG Rockin' Playing Game. the fourth opening for the series during the Battle of Fairy Tail arc and the climax of the Tower of Heaven. This song is fucking awesome, man. Probably even top 5 if we're judging strictly music alone. We've been deep into sing-along territory for a minute with these OPs, but for this one in particular, it's something about that yo-ho. Like, it's infectious, man. You can't help but join in, you know? Many of these songs are great to use for Fairy Tail openings, but there are a few of them that, you know, capture the spirit of Fairy Tail perfectly, and this is one of them for me. It's still an early OP from the series, so the action included here is still kind of basic choreography, but what makes this opening great is how well so many scenes click with the music in the background. That and the fact that this OP is pretty much just the Thunder Legion showcase that leans heavy into the style of Fried's enchantments. My personal favorite member of the Thunder Legion, thank you. The beginning really supports that whole spirit of Fairy Tail vibe, you know, that this OP gives me, but probably my favorite scene is right after it. During a thunderstorm, ha, get it? We see Loxus, Fried, Bixlow, and Evergreen looking as badass as ever. Then that quickly switches to another badass shot of Mistigan and a quick flash of Porliuska looking all emotional because of Makarov. It's okay, Porliuska. This is like the first of many death scares. Trust me, you'll get used to it. This whole section is probably my favorite part of the song. Actually, who am I kidding? It's definitely the scene of Mira Jane's transformation. What am I talking about? The Tower of Heaven and Battle of Fairy Tail arcs is when Fairy Tail truly got started for me. The rest before it was kind of just prologue. RPG is one of my most nostalgic themes for Fairy Tail personally, besides one that I haven't talked about yet for obvious reasons. We'll get there. Number 9. Me and you. I wasn't expecting this OP to grow on me as much as it did, really. My first reactions were always, you know, the animation is amazing, but the song is just a little too MTV Jams pop to be used to represent the start of a climactic final war arc. But I'm gonna be completely transparent here. The song is a bop, bruh. The more I listen to it, the more I get sucked into the funkiness of the beat, or the "we are down," but all right, I'm gonna stop saying it. I can't do it as well as that guy anyway. Now when I reach the end of the OP, I feel like they could have given us an extra minute, you know, instead of cutting it off as soon as the song really starts to pick up. But yeah, enough gushing about the song. Now it's time to gush about the art, and where to begin, man? I love the way they use the lacrima crystals in the beginning to show off the main pillars of this war arc. And Happy. Doranbalt, Mest, I don't even know anymore, looks super cool here, and so does this spin around shot of Brandish and Lucy's bath together, being all lightly colored with that little shading that I always love. Wall, of course, looks badass, and actually all of the Spriggan 12 look badass here. Spriggan 12, Espada, Akatsuki, or Phantom Troop. Right now, who's your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. I also love the scene of Jacob vanishing into a puff of smoke, mainly because it's during the hook and he's literally like anime Jason Statham, so it's just cool. Okay. Also, I can't go without mentioning the absolutely gorgeous action scenes of Wendy, Shelia, and Carla versus Demaria, and of Gagio versus Bloodman. This is one of the OPs with some of the prettiest animation in the series, in my opinion, and once again, they make room for absolutely everybody. Mavis and Makarov at Fairy Tail HQ, Ultir, God Serena, Giant Happy, the 4 Emperors of Ishgar, the Arachion Seis, Meldy and Juvia, literally everyone that got involved. I love OPs that focus on certain characters, but I also love all-inclusive OPs, you know? Again, the song is a bit inappropriate for the start of a war arc, so I gotta knock it down a few notches for that, but the war was still awesome, the animation is absolutely gorgeous, and at the end of the day, the song is pretty catchy, you know? We do it. Number 8. Now, this opening is great because, boy, do you feel the tone switch for the series here. Now, I wasn't following Fairy Tail in real time, so I don't know how noticeable the difference was after a year-long hiatus. But when you binge the episodes like I did, all of a sudden you're just like, whoa. where did all this budget come from? Seriously though, the backgrounds have really stepped up in this season. Like I said though, you feel the tone change more than anything, you know? We've had OPs for climaxes of an arc before this, like I Wish and the Rock City Boy and Rockin' Playing Game, but all of them still carry this lighthearted, oh, it's just another fairy tale campfire story kind of vibe to it. Masayumi Chasing gives you ruins and rubble, scorching red skies, a song that's just made for crying, and a slightly off-putting but absolutely perfect in hindsight scene of Natsu comforting Lucy at the very end. Now, don't get me wrong, this OP starts off pretty somber, especially with this scene of Sting reminiscing on all the good times in Sabretooth. Jeez. How foolish of me to think that somebody would actually die in this series. But this opening still has its fair share of great battle scenes as well. Urza versus Kagura versus Minerva in a triple threat match is my personal favorite fight from the Grand Magic games, besides the Dragon Slayer tag team match of course. But what really takes the cake here is the battle scene of the Fairy Tail members versus the Executioners in the Palace of Hades, that underground prison type thing. God, why are all people of nobility in anime scumbags or idiots? Actually, that applies in real life too. Never mind. I also really appreciate Miliana jumping around with all the Exceeds. It's just one of those harmless and fun OP moments that is just so infitting with her character, you know? There's even more that I could talk about here, but we still got 7 entries to get through, my friends. So last thing though, I guess this OP isn't any higher up because the next opening after this just completely blows it out of the water, unfortunately. Number 7. Just believe in myself. この世界で終わらない夢追いかけ Speed up, speed up. This is one of those OPs that I honestly think gets hyped up a little too much. I mean, it definitely works as one of those race to the finish, end of an arc openings that come around during the climax of huge arcs always. Literally in this case because they included a running scene of Natsu and Gray's silhouettes as well as the countdown clock for the face operation. I guess I just prefer the verse to the actual hook of the song, maybe? I don't know. The hook just doesn't really do anything for me, frankly. But it does work really well with the running scene that I was just talking about, especially with all those series moments in the background. So what am I talking about really? But really, how low could you rank an OP that literally has lyrics saying, "You light my fire," while Natsu is literally walking through fire? Probably his own fire. That's like top 15 level attention to detail right there at least. My favorite part of this opening though is how the studio chooses to give Natsu and Gray the Asta and Yuno treatment, if you will. The Naruto and Sasuke treatment, really, basing the OP on the parallels of the two rival protagonists' stories around this time. Sorry, Gajio. Which is appropriate, really, because around this time they were both discovering more about their origins and at least gaining some sort of closure with the disappearance of both of their parents. As for the action here, Urza versus Kyoka and Natsu versus Mard Gear is perfectly fine, but nothing necessarily jaw-dropping, you know? This OP is mainly in the number 7 spot because of the stylistic choice to use Natsu and Gray as the base, and because this was during the climax of, I guess, a pretty divisive arc in the fairy tale community, but I enjoyed it despite Tartaros being absolutely pointless by the time the final arc came around, and because seeing Natsu and Igneo fight together brings a tear to my eye. For 250 episodes, Natsu is searching for this guy. It's like Naruto and Minato when they teamed up during the 4th Great Shinobi War. Actually, let me not get too ahead of myself. This was great though. Number 6. This, for me, we're talking about me here, is the beginning of Fairy Tail. You know, back in, I want to say somewhere around 2014, I was just a nerdy little teenager watching Achievement Hunter videos. Shout out to all my Rooster Teeth fans out there, which is when I caught wind of one of their members, Michael Jones, being casted for Sting in the Fairy Tail anime. A couple months passed and I decided to check out the series for the first time, skipping over 150 pre-existing episodes and jumping right into the Grand Magic games. While I ended up falling off of the series, honestly I can't remember when, I would be lying if I didn't say that this OP, upon rewatching this in the midst midst of binging the entire series didn't trigger my nostalgia in a big way. Almost like unlocking a part of your memory that you've long since deleted from your brain's cache. I won't dare disrespect Snow Fairy, don't worry, but this is my favorite fairy tale theme song. You'll never forget that feeling of being a fresh fan to a series, you know, even if you start halfway through it. Much like the Magic of Smiles OP from when Wendy and Carla were introduced, this OP keeps it simple and effective, establishing each of the guilds participating in the Grand Magic Games. Fairy Tale Team A and B is much cooler, Blue Pegasus, Lamia Scale, Mermaid Heel, Quattro Cerberus, Quattro Puppy, Raventail, look at Flare here, she looks like she's whacked off coke, and the almighty Sabretooth. I say this a lot, but if there's one thing I love, it's a tournament arc, you know? And this OP proves exactly why. Not only is this song great to introduce any new arc really, not just a tournament, but we get to see a whole host of new characters after the 7-year time skip, as well as glimpses of the different battles that we're all about to watch. My favorite battle was Mira Jane versus Jenny, because of all the strategy, bruh, it's just so much strategy. And speaking of battles, I'm also glad that my man Elfman finally got some time to shine in a pretty high intensity brawl against Bacchus towards the end. This opening is just very welcoming to the world of fairy tale and always reminds me of what life was like 6 years ago before a global pandemic. As much as I wanted to, I couldn't include it in the top 5 just because of, you know, the rest of these OPs are just animation and or musical brilliance, but I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for Breakthrough. Number 5. It's the Kiwi intro. I love Fairy Tail Zero. Mavis probably has the best backstory in Fairy Tail to me, shooting her right up the list competing with Urza for who my favorite female Fairy Tail character is. Now, I'm on the side that feels like Fairy Tail Zero could have gotten its own spin-off series or at least a little more than just a dozen episodes, you know? Give us a Fairy Tail Zero film, fuck it. I love the glitchy and punchy vibe that this opening song and animation provide. Everything works in tandem perfectly with Kafka Shishido's incredible track playing in the background, especially for this action scene of Ward, Precht, and Yuri, the original Fairy Tail members, showcasing all their magic during a part of the hook. There's just a lot going on in this OP, you know, with glimpses of all the moments in Mavis's life, from the Red Lizard Guild getting destroyed, to Xerath's relationship with Mavis, to any scene involving Mavis and Zera. No spoilers here, go watch Fairy Tail Zero and you'll understand the impact of all of this. But not just content-wise, there's also a lot going on stylistically, as I've mentioned before, with all the Zero branding throughout this opening. I have this OP starting my top 5 because it has a little bit of everything, you know? A kick-ass song, pretty fun animation, and the Fairy Tail Zero arc was really well written by Hiro Mashima, as well as feeling very nostalgic as an anime because of how segmented off it was from the rest of the series. Great memories. Number 4. This is another one of those capture the spirit of fairy tale openings that, as Natsu would say, really puts a fire in my belly. And this was at the height of everything, you know? Fairy Tail trying to gain an advantage over all of these absolutely broken members of the Spriggan 12. Natsu finally confronting his connection to END. It was all coming to a head as the Alvarez War arc edged closer to its final act. All I can think about while watching this OP is the tragic backstories of Larcade and Irene, which Irene is honestly one of the most broken anime characters out there, but her battle against Urza was just compelling, you know? And I won't tell you why because I'm not that guy. Go and watch it. I think you get the hint. In additions to animation, all I can say is, ooh, look at the pretty colors. I like the way they showcase the Spriggan 12 here, each with their own color, and damn is this shot of Natsu staring into the sunset beautiful. All of the art here is just super well done, you know? And I'm not necessarily speaking about animation here, just the art. The drawings are all super slick and polished up real nice, you know? The action scenes for Urza, Gray, and Natsu all carry a sense of urgency with them. Like this is their final chance for victory. The Irration Seis look amazing in this scene with the starry night sky in the background, and I like how it pans down to Angel and Yukino deep in the forest. Mavis and Zera's hugging scene is very, very pretty, and then we ended on the best part, of course, Natsu and Gray in their respective demon forms marching towards each other, which gives me goosebumps every time I watch this opening, really. I just wish they would have made more out of a fight like that. This opening is for sure one of my favorites, and compared to Down by Law, this is what I'm talking about as a high energy, frantic opening for a chaotic war arc. Honestly, I don't even have a reason for why it's not in my top 3. At this point, I'm just listing off all my favorites in order of favoritism, if that even makes any sense. Number 3. かけられた魔法を本物なままじまじ見てる多くのものの世界を変えてゆけるだろう Okay, so I knew coming into this that I had to place the last 2 openings of the series right next to each other. I just didn't know which one would get the upper hand on the other one. But after some careful deliberating with my team of just me, we've deduced that More Than Like holds so much more emotional weight to it, while No Limit just capitalizes on the excitement of the climax to a war arc. Now, that's not to say that this OP doesn't still feature the Alvarez War in some capacity. We see Jalal and Blue Pegasus with Lucy's ancestor Anna on the Christina ship, and a pretty wicked scene of the standoff between August and Gildart, so for a final opening, it does still have its fair share of action included. But man, it's almost ridiculous the amount of times I was close to tearing up during this OP, and trust me, it only gets worse as you slowly approach the end episode by episode. The shooting stars in the rift in time and the actual rift in time being shown inside Zeref's eye are both colored beautifully, and this scene of Zeref and Mavis tearing up with imminent death and the imminent beat drop right around the corner almost brings me to tears myself every time, man. Watching Zeref be built up for over 300 episodes, watching Fairy Tail Zero and digging deep into the past of Mavis and Zero for this entire final season all culminates in this rush of indescribable feelings for just a simple 5-second scene, really. It's magic, no pun intended. Then the mini montage of Natsu during the title sequence just follows up the emotional gut punch with another in my feelings uppercut. As much as I despise Makarov being teased to still be alive in this opening, it's completely negated, honestly, by all the sentiment that this OP creates. A final opening is difficult to get right. I believe probably even harder than a first opening. Hell, some anime even get canceled before they can get to that point. But I'll give it to Fairy Tail and A1 Pictures / Cloverworks. They knocked it out of the park with this one. They got a very long and arduous battle is finally winding down, feeling spot on. We got our obligatory Gray and Ore scene. All the final villains look super intimidating, from Agnologia's transformation to August turning around slowly, to Zeref using Fairy Heart, and do I even need to talk about the actual song? This whole OP is a real tearjerker to say the least. Number 2. And now, from the very last opening, we go all the way back to the very first opening. And this one is definitely a tearjerker as well, just for different reasons, you know? Again, I didn't start Fairy Tail when everyone else did. I started at the Grand Magic Games. But this song is so iconic that in a couple of months that it took me to brush up on my Fairy Tail, this song already feels like something that takes me back a whole 10 years. Regardless of any of my or your introductions to or associations with Fairy Tail, this is the definitive Fairy Tail theme song. It's just not up for debate. No other song on this list can capture the spirit of Fairy Tail like Snow Fairy does. Now sure, the artwork here is still pretty early days, and if you compare it to my previous entry, you can see exactly how much the series and its production have grown over 10 years, but to me, that's just what makes it so charming, you know? Like I said, there's nothing like being a fresh fan to a series, and regardless of all of the pomp and pizzazz that the later openings give you, this opening means a lot to a lot of people that did indeed grow up with the series. And it means a lot to people like me that are just catching up and love seeing popular anime series start at ground zero. So yeah, There's hardly any action in this opening, and yeah, you can tell the artwork is still from that time period when anime was trying to figure out how to be in HD, but it honestly doesn't really matter. The nostalgia points for this opening are through the roof, and the music is very formidable in its own right. If anything, this scene of Lucy cracking up in the Fairy Tail Guild Hall pretty much sums up everything I love about Fairy Tail and this OP. They're a family that will go to any means to protect the bonds they've created, and to become the strongest guild ever. But most importantly, they just love having a good time, you know? After finishing the series and revisiting this OP, it definitely hits differently. More than anything though, I feel like this OP proves exactly how much simplicity in an opening can truly go a long way. However, don't get me wrong, action scenes do a lot for an opening as well.
Say goodbye.
And that brings me to, I gotta do it because I didn't do it on the last video, number 1. Oh, what could it be? This is the one, bro. It was love at first sight. It literally has everything, like all the stuff that I've been discussing thus far in regards to what makes an opening great to me. Spectacular animation, check. Genius foreshadowing, check. Badass imagery and iconography, check. The best song ever, check. The benefit of being backed by the climax of a huge arc, which just so happens to be the arc that I came into Fairy Tail on, check. It just has all of it in spades and then some. Strike Back has always been in contention for best anime song of the past 10 years for me. Yes, it's comparable to the likes of Silhouette and the Promised Neverland OP, okay? I said it. Kill me now. First, this opening scene of Lucy opening the... Hold up, that just fucked my brain up. First, this opening scene of Lucy opening the Eclipse door is absolutely fantastic foreshadowing for the legacy of her ancestors, which would unravel a little further on down the timeline. Seeing the king prepare his kingdom for war and the 6 Dragon Slayers march into said war is one of the most hyped moments in all of Fairy Tail. In fact, I love all of the scenes in this OP that showcase all the Dragon Slayers working together on the battlefield. It's just proper fan service. Mavis hovering over the battlefield, Lucy and Yukino summoning all 12 of the Zodiac Celestial Spirits, and all the scenes of the dragons wreaking havoc all over Crocus really gets the blood boiling, you know? Almost like I'm getting myself ready to go into battle, you know? Psych, I'm on my couch, bro. They're all blink and you'll miss it moments, but I love Rogue's shadow, teasing that he could potentially be the villain, when, swerve, it was actually future Rogue. And of Lucy and her future self, then Lucy hugging Natsu for security and comfort. Cobra looks badass, and of course, Natsu gets King Badass Award for wiping off his wound like it's nothing, preparing to charge head first into a battle against a giant freaking dragon. But then we get the fight scene between Natsu and future Rogue, and my god, this is the most adrenaline boosting 5 seconds of my entire life. Man, Urza heading up the Fairy Tail reinforcement squad. Look at the whole gang ready to catch a body. Of course, you can't forget the Gray and Ore scene, but really, I just want to take this second to appreciate Altair in all her beauty. She is not cherished enough, guys. I'm trying to tell you. Your life is worth so much more than a minute to me, my love. I could talk about this OP all day, and I could definitely listen to the song all day. Strike Back is like Bleach's Change by Miwa in the sense that once you hear that aggressively whispered, "Strike Back," all Fairy Tail fans immediately perk up like, whoa, 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 dragons, what we gotta do, fight them? Okay. While Fairy Tail may not be the series for everybody, you know, I believe that this opening would at least make you think twice about giving it a chance, right? Actually, hold on, I'm about to go watch this OP just one more time before wrapping this up. BRB. And that, whew, took a long time to get here. And that was every Fairy Tail opening ranked from worst to best. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, let me know if let me know what your list would be, or seeing as how we got 30 songs to pick, let me know what your top 10 would be. I don't know, just general Fairy Tail comments. Really light up the comment section with anything you want to talk about, even if it's just crucifying me for, I don't know, not pitting Fiesta above 25. Like, I honestly can't tell what will be controversial here. I'm sure you guys will let me know. But just a little quick update on next month. Turns out in the process of writing this video, found out on YouTube that the algorithm, the copyright algorithm, the bastards, took my original Naruto video down from over a year ago. The most successful video that I've probably done since I rebranded this channel. Definitely the genesis of all of these ranking openings from worst to best, you know? The most controversial of controversial videos. I'm still getting, to this day, even though the video was taken down, I'm still getting hate for Bluebird. I just can't escape it. So they finally took it down for whatever reason, because it's been up for a year and it hasn't had any copyright strikes. So, you know, whatever. But I've decided that next month we're going to revisit that video. It's going to be every Naruto opening ranked from worst to best again. You know, I'm gonna be honest, I feel like it was a year ago, so first of all, that video was cringy in many places, but also I've changed my mind on a couple of those openings. You know, even like sometime last year, like 6 months ago, I changed my mind, but I wasn't going to change it because, you know, I didn't want to alter the video too much. I just wanted to let it live. But now that they've taken the video down, hell, I might as well revisit it, you know? That's what you guys can expect for next month. But still, though, that doesn't mean that you can't leave comments under the video. Please let me know under the video what you want me to rank next, what kind of series you want me to rank next. Again, we still have plenty of series left. We're not scraping at the barrel yet. Let me know, guys. One Piece is, I'm listening to you, One Piece guy, and all the One Piece guys that want me to rank One Piece. I'm listening to you, but please just give it a little bit more time, okay? But yeah, let me know what you guys want to rank next. Leave a like if I'm all right. Subscribe, please, because I'm broke. Long live Fairy Tail, and that's it. I'm the sun. I'm out. Sun time.